to another happiness class. Um, this is a weekly thing, happens every Thursday, 7 to 8 p.m. And looks like Wahid, your ketchup has
My
moved you,
ketchup and my cooking oil bottle.
has moved your phone. Yep. All right. Behind the scenes, secret information.
Yeah.
And do check out previous shows at bigquestionsanswered.com. This week, the show is about protests. So basically, every show or class, whatever you want to call it, is about something that really affects our happiness in different ways. So, our position in the world, how we affect the world, i.e., through protest. Is protest really the best way to change the world? And then the second half hour is an open question answer. You can ask anything you want. We have a couple of interesting questions as always lined up. Join the live chat and do press the like button to support the show. So let's get going. So the first question, so I like to put everything as a question so it helps focus everything, our discussions, is do protests make positive and lasting change? So we generally talk about so many different ways of how do we change the world and things like that. So that's an important question because a lot of people believe that is the way. And I've got sort of mixed opinions on that. When I say mixed, not just like I'm not sure, but um, I'll talk about the details. So my very short answer, as you can hopefully see on the screen, is complaining for a day won't change things. So that doesn't mean no kind of protest, no version of protesting can make a difference. But I would say the popular idea, and sorry about me blowing my nose, and I think I might encourage Wahid to start again. I think
No,
we've
no,
got both a bit of
yeah.
uh, we're being attacked by pollen as the season, seasonal issues. Anyway,
Don't encourage,
um,
don't encourage it. Please don't
yeah,
encourage.
sorry, let's not bring it up. We might psychologically just get affected
Yeah,
by it. There we go. I've got him going now.
yeah.
Okay, so so
What's the
we we like doing mass protests, and I say we like it. I'm not just joking about it. This is a psychological thing. So we are social beings. It's a very important part of who we are, and any psychologist will tell you it's like fundamental to our happiness. So we don't think of ourselves as tribal, but we are tribal. Being part of a community is very important. Um, and so that is one of the reasons why we like to protest. We're actually kind of addicted to protesting, even though it causes us many problems. Because when we're protesting, what that generally is, and I say generally, is saying, we are good, and you make a group. So you love being in a group, going to, especially since Western societies are very lonely, we like joining a massive group and saying, hey, everybody else, those other people are terrible. So you say Black Lives Matter, for example, and then that means maybe it's the white people who are doing the bad stuff or something. So the black people blaming the white people, for example, even though you know no person is innocent. Everybody's got a problem and are cause of the problem. So anyway, so we're addicted to it. We love blame. We like making our own tribe and blaming another tribe. That's a very old thing, part of our nature. And so we have to get over that. We have to realize, I mean, I'm bringing all this up because we have to realize where our addiction is coming from. And the reason why it's really dangerous is because we actually want unity. We need to build bridges. If we don't do that, if we start blaming everybody else for not listening to us, then we will never win. We're actually going to lose because the powers that are controlling us, they are depending on us as being divided. So we have to be really careful about that. So that's why protests can be really dangerous. And going into him, I'm talking a lot now. I'm just going to try to cover. Maybe I'll try to speed it up and go less less detailed than I am right now, so give Wahid a chance. But just to kind of lay out the basic problems. So, uh, cool. So we've got a comment which is protesting is a human right when a human has no right. So this is really important. I want to uh, respond to that because this is one of the fundamental problems that we're suffering from. So when we think in terms of rights instead of responsibilities, which is this is the Achilles heel of Western society and why we are suffering so much. Because Western society worships this idea of individualism. Okay, and you might think, oh, individualism, that's really good. Freedom, that's really good. Actually, freedom by itself doesn't make you happy. Okay, and focusing on rights does not make you happy at all, actually. In fact, it's responsibility and togetherness and doing things for other people that makes us happy. And this is what psychologists tell us. I always talk about very simple experiments. There's loads of experiments to demonstrate that. For example, they did one where they said, if you buy a coffee for yourself or buy a coffee for other people, you find yourself much happier when you're buying coffee for other people. And there's really obvious explanations for that. But basically, it makes a connection. You're welcome. And I'm actually, thank you very much, all here. Hi, Hera? Harry, whatever. Sorry for not pronouncing it properly. Thank you for your participation. I value it. It helps, we need to have people from different opinions, by the way, to engage with each other and see each other both on the same side. Even if we disagree at first, we have to be able to disagree, but have enough humility to hear each other. And I want to say straight away, there could be all sorts of elements. I'm always often corrected by the way I express myself. So maybe there's something not quite right in that, and I need to be humble as well, right? So, but there's just some fundamental principles that I think that makes sense, right? So we need to focus on responsibilities, and I'm going to come back on a little story about that. I think it's a famous story, Enoch's Fables of what like Enoch, I forgot what it's called, but anyway, so that's one element. This kind of tribalism, and that divides us, and we have to be really careful of that. So I'm not against all sorts of protests, but protesting for a day is gonna make you really miserable because you're gonna come out like, say, the anti-Iraq wars, the biggest anti-Iraq protest, sorry, anti-Iraq war protest. Okay, which is, I mention that because it's our biggest in the UK, the biggest protest we ever had, right? And it was completely ignored. And people start feeling despondent. They'll think, oh, we did this massive protest, 2 million, 1 million people, however you count it, came out and it didn't make a difference. And the people in control, they know it's just a party because it's only one day. We never, because we're individualists, we're never strong enough to form a community that can fight back against this very small minority that control us. But we need to be united before we can fight back. When you say fight back, doesn't mean smash up windows. That just destroys society. That destroys our own people, for example, who run the businesses that we're part of that society. Um, it means like getting together to vote for the right person, for example, and not being tricked by divisive politics, like you know, um, being against or for what's it called, being in Europe, Brexit, and all this kind of stuff. So anyway, let me just quickly rush on to the final 2 points, get Wahid involved as well. So real happiness is from doing something meaningful every day. So that's another really important thing, right? So when I said complaining for a day, I mean, like, if you want to protest, do a sort of protest that's practical, like makes something better, and do it daily, not for one day. Okay, because the powers that are in control know that if you just do it for one day, the masses are fickle, as it were. You are easily broken up if you're just a mob, as it were, just for one day. But if you're a community, that's different to a mob, then you're powerful. And communities don't really exist at the moment because we're obsessed about individualism. So, I mean, yeah, so Why do I bring happiness into it? Because like if you really want to be motivated over a long period of time, you have to understand what really makes you happy, and what makes us happy is doing meaningful things. And again, I would love to quote Viktor Frankl, as top psychologist of our time, wrote "Man's Search for Meaning," and he said that's the basic solution to finding happiness. And meaning sounds, in the public, it sounds like this funny thing that nobody can find out about, and that's actually really bad for us, that we think we cannot find meaning at all. And the last bit is kind of repeating this idea of individualism has, I would describe, as dissolved society. Like, we think of individualism as a solution to all our problems, and I'm not really against treating, respecting people's individual choice, but that can't be the number one thing. Okay, real happiness is in togetherness, I like to say, in community, in unity. um and I don't want to go into that too much, but unity is so powerful in creating happiness. I was doing a street party the other day. I'm not going to go into too much, and people realized how much they needed each other. Just sitting down and talking to each other is so valuable, and so many people are asking for it. When I say street party, one of the Jubilee street parties. Um, so we need to find a way to become united, and united against evil. By the way, and I'll repeat that: the evil of selfish people who control us at the moment. And and the evil is not just outside us; it's inside us as well. The we need to be, what's the phrase, the solution that we are looking for in society. There's some phrase that goes like that. Okay. There's another comment, and then I would like you, Wahid, to either comment on what I've said, or what all I can't see it. All Hera, Here, I think. But the screen's a little bit far away from me. Anyway, I would argue that anyone protesting is already very, very miserable. Interesting. Interesting. And I don't disagree with that, actually, in some ways. I think society at the moment is pretty miserable. But anyway, before I respond to that anymore, just any thoughts, Wahid?
Yeah, the reason why people are miserable because their voices are not being heard. And when people's voices are not heard, that's potentially protesting can lead to potential violence.
Yes.
And that's why, should we protest or not? But if you want to protest, do it in a more civil way.
Yeah.
But
You said a couple of go on, keep going. I've interrupted you, but I'm going to try to remember something that you said, something here important.
if people's voices are not being heard, and this has not been going on for years, it's been going on probably centuries, when people's voices are not being heard,
Yes.
frustration leads to turmoil, turmoil leads to breakdown, breakdown leads to violence, and violence leads to individualism and separatism.
That's very interesting. A whole interesting domino effect. So the two things you said that I'm going to make sure I try to respond to. So one thing that both you kind of
But
so you
what?
about not being heard is similar, kind of echoes what all Hera is saying about. I feel like it's kind of subtly said in the comment by all Hera about being miserable. Okay. You feel, you are powerless,
Yeah,
right? Okay, and how do we overcome that? So we can either keep playing the blame game, and when you play the blame game, you actually feel more powerless and more miserable. And so what do? I am always giving, giving, giving. So if somebody's rude to me, I'm kind back. Um, and then you start feeling powerful, even though maybe, you could be killed, for example, straight away, for, or whatever. But you feel you start making a difference really quickly, because other people start saying, you know what, if we stop blaming and start fixing ourselves, we start feeling the change. That's
mm,
really important. And you start changing other people. Otherwise, it's always a down. he'll downward spiral of hate and blame, and it's unfair. I think that's really dangerous. But there's something else you said, something about violence, and I want to talk about it right now before I forget. Is that I'm really disappointed in the current um, protest by some Muslim groups, and I call them extremist Muslim groups, who have stopped certain movie being shown, and they've scared some cinema companies not showing a movie, and that's not how it's done. That is mob warfare. That's that's not the kind of that doesn't convince people. That divides people more, and actually that encourages, from what I'm seeing, all the right racists and the people who like division, they are doing more of it. Um, they grab onto it and say, "Oh, look at those bad Muslims," and it's a few bad Muslims, because most Muslims, like you and me, we don't protest about that. We're like, okay, show the movie, we just won't go to it. Do you know what I mean? If we
Yeah,
don't like the
yeah.
movie.
Right.
Um,
They just
so, but thanks for the comments as well, all here. You saw my street party because on YouTube, because it was put on YouTube by a nice friend called Simon, and all here. I'm sorry, I'm not that smart, but it sounds like one of like here, here. I agree, maybe. Oh, all here. That's you put in caps. That's I get it. I get it. You're just explaining what your thing is. I can see it clearly in all caps. I get it. So anyway, so that's one thing. There's always more to be discussed about it. In fact, the next question is kind of about the same thing, about this fractured society. How can we unite our fractured society? And I think this is a really important question, because we we focus so much on this utopian idea of how things should be, but we don't really like, oh, it should be like this, like we should have a different education system sometime in the future, and one day when it happens it will fix everything, or we should not have property, or we should whatever. But I want to talk about what we can do as fast as possible today, sort of thing, because I love being practical. um Oh, and I kind of got distracted, to be honest. It's not just about that. It's kind of like like it's always somebody else's fault, and we need to really focus on realizing, yeah, sure, there's somebody else's fault, but it's also our fault, and we need to unite society. I want less blaming, because when we blame, we're blaming somebody else in society. Sometimes we try to blame somebody invisible, like the elite or something. But I'm not sure if that helps as well. A bit worried about that. Anyway, so can you please both give your definition of what a protest is, please? So yeah, I did say that I'm against a certain definition of protest, which is like, or the most popular one, I would say, which is a one-day march. A one-day march, and the worst quality about it is it's one day and it's against other people. And I basically call it tribalism. What about you, Wahid? What would you describe as a protest?
well,
This is
like
a question by all here.
a protest would be like a. It can be something which divides people. A protest could be, I don't know, something which something more meaningful, you could say.
Yeah, so you think, what was it, a protest is something meaningful?
If it is meaningful, then it should be classified as a protest. But if it's an excuse to just cause more trouble, then it shouldn't be classified as a protest.
Then it's a riot. Yeah,
Yeah,
what do you think?
yes.
Yeah, cool. I like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so all here, so now we're talking about finding unity, and all here says, but go to the same school. And I imagine by that it's the same kind of school, as in, maybe you can correct me if you want, all here, but like not some people going to private or elite schools like Eton, where most of the prime ministers of this country have come from, but like all the same kind of school, like all going to their local school, for example. So everybody is part of the same community. And so, yeah, schools are a very interesting idea, because I do find that schools are one of the last few bits of community that exist. Um, like, there's no other place. Like, there's parks, but people are individuals in parks, and they don't talk to each other in play areas. Like if you've got kids, um, but if you don't have kids, you're even more separate in these. There's these social areas, but we're not social in those areas normally. Does that? I don't know if that makes sense. Um, so should all protests have a manifesto? Yeah, but I don't think in just a manifesto. I think there should be community before. That anybody can have ideas, but following, really believing in those ideas is really important. Really following it consistently over a long period of time is really important. And that's actually really hard to have, a set of really good, productive ideas, because often manifestos have two qualities that are coming to mind that are really negative. They're popularist, as in just popular for one group at the moment. These are manifestos that political parties have. Um, so yeah, that's one thing. I can't remember the other one. So they're kind of popularist, and also they might not be so wise and um beneficial for everybody. Like, how can you, like, so basically what I'm getting at is, I'm a big proponent of God's wisdom, because we and people really, I think people rejected too much religion, or they've gone really anti it, and I can understand why, because of how, especially in the UK, we've had some really bad experiences of religion. um but it's really hard to define the perfect truth, because first of all, our knowledge of the world is very limited. So but maybe I won't go down there too much. Like, okay, forget, like, let's say there's an idea borrowed from religion. Okay, a really simple idea, like being neighborly, doing good before expecting anything from other people. Those are kind of manifestos we should have. But then it might not be, that might not sound like an average person's protest, but I think that's the kind of protest I would be. I like, my first protest is against my own community. It's like, guys, we need to get our act together if we want to be powerful, because if we want to make a difference, we're not going to wait for the elite to give it up. It's like, oh, you terrible elite, give us the power. That's not going to happen. We have to do it. So we have to go ahead and say, like, let's get united. Number one, how are you going to get united? Well, how about talking to your neighbor, or being friend with your neighbor, and your neighbor thinking it's their duty to do that. And one of the things I'm going to keep coming back to religion, because religion is really powerful and can be powerful, but and of course also can be really destructive. It's if it's not really religion anymore, and if it's politics hidden, disguised as religion. But I'm going to quickly say this: happiness and community have gone down since churches have become less popular. Okay, and they've become less popular because of all sorts of bad things, like, you know, pedophiles amongst priests, right? Priest pedophiles and stuff like that, which is obviously not any part of any religion, right? So it's gone corrupted. But we've lost community, we've lost the reason to be together. And so don't jump for atheism and all these things without realizing the consequences. And the consequence of not believing in a god is realize. So when you believe in all religions basically teach this idea that we are all children of God, and therefore we're all brothers and sisters. As soon as we realize we're all brothers and sisters, we're no longer strangers and competitors and haters of each other. And that's where all this divisiveness comes from. If you think you're brothers and sisters and you have a problem, you talk it out. You don't say, they're toxic, I hate them, I'm not talking to them anymore, and they are the enemy, because that is just happening all the time. And it's not getting fixed. How are we ever going to fix it? So, I mean, I've done a lot of talking. Let me quickly read out a few comments. And I want to read out a few comments, and I'm going to definitely tell this story about like what happiness and unity looks like. Okay, because I think stories are memorable. It's just how the human brain works. Okay, so a couple of comments like, yes, there's a bit of agreement about what um protest is, I think. And All Hill also said Oxbridge just said today that if you are poor, you should not expect to go to Oxbridge. Okay. You, yes, populist is the great danger. Yeah, because populism, we can easily be manipulated. So what is popular might not actually be in our own. Like, for example, I think Brexit was a bit of a mistake, because we need a lot. We need, say, the Polish people to do our farming, for example, and hating on them. We're suffering from it already. But anyway, because we can't get the people. Um, but I want to quickly tell a story, if I can do it really quickly. It's about like what actually makes us happy and about doing stuff for each other. And I think it's something fable. I can't remember what they're called, some famous one. So basically, there's a modern version, and it goes something like there's a guy who somehow comes across a lift. And he opens a lift, and there's a man inside, and it says, "Do you want to go up to heaven or down to hell? It's just for visiting." Right, and says, "Sure, let's go to hell first." So goes down to hell, and the door opens, and the guy is the person who's going to hell for the first time is really surprised, and he sees a massive table full of food, and these people sitting on thrones on this table full of food. And that's it. Like, am I in the right place? Is this heaven or hell? Like, no, this is definitely hell. Then he looks closely, and he sees all these people are hungry. Okay, and then he looks even more closer, and you can see the spoons to feed themselves are huge, so big that even though there's so much food in front of them, they can't get the food into their own mouths because the spoons are too big. Does that kind of make sense? It's a bit weird.
Oh,
Obviously, in the real world, you just get you not hold the end of the spoon, but you kind of get the idea, right?
yeah.
So everybody's hungry despite there being so much food. And this is really representative of society at the moment, or the world at the moment. People are actually dying of having, being miserable despite being surrounded by people. There's kind of a analogy or connection. Like there's so much stuff, but we're still so unhappy. More stuff doesn't make us happier. Okay. So then it goes, okay, I've seen enough of hell. Let's go heaven. So he goes up on the lift and gets to heaven. And he sees the same situation. He goes, a massive table full of food, people on these thrones, and the same massive spoons. But this time, the difference is everybody's feeding the other person. And
Okay.
that's the really, and so therefore everybody's full up because they're feeding somebody else. Okay, you cannot really make yourself happy by serving yourself. You make yourself happy by serving other people. And maybe, hopefully, that story, although it sounds ridiculous, is actually very closely reflective of what psychologists tell us about what happiness is. Like meaning, finding meaning. What is meaning? Meaning is doing something good for other people. Meaning is not serving yourself just for the sake of serving yourself. That's not meaning. Um, so, any thoughts about that? We've got about a minute and a half. Be interested in what O'Hare has got to say about that idea of that. I mean, so what has that got to do with unity? Well, unity is realizing we need each other, and happiness is through togetherness. I do like my little phrases because they're more memorable. Happiness is togetherness. If people remember that, that would break this selfishness that is popular in individualistic societies. Yeah, there's a couple of ideas. Maybe somebody like and I said, and I haven't actually I didn't even read out my answer. Fight the evil of disunity with truth. So that's the truth. Those are truths, things that most people will agree are true. That's what I mean by truth. Ideas that tell us what really makes us happy. And once we know those things, we'll realize that disunity and individualism or hatred for other people doesn't help anybody. If we only just knew that. I've only given you 30 seconds after I've done my massive speech. So, any thoughts, Wahid, on this and all here?
Yeah, well, sometimes that is exactly it. It's the unity that is separating all of us. That's the problem. It's because we need to be more united. We need to know that as your point was, every single one of us, we are all brothers and sisters. We are all brothers and sisters, and you know, we need to complement one another instead of attack one another.
Yeah. And so let's see what O'Hara says. You and populism by make you end populism by making legal binding that lying or not following your proposition by facing jail. Sure. Okay, so I mean, I'll give a quick answer to that. So you can make it a legal thing that you have to follow your your promises that you make as a maybe as a political party, but in reality, as long as people are immoral, they will just break the laws. That's my short answer. The laws can are very easy to get around. We What we need to elect are not people based on what they say they will do, but we need to elect, I think, and this is a thing we will talk about maybe when you come on the show or here. Um, uh, when uh, when when we elect just good people, basically, because good people would just do the right things anyway for us. Anyway, so let's jump on to the next thing because I'm desperately trying to actually keep to these timestamps. Um, so, if we are not told God's rules correctly, why should we go to hell for breaking them? And so this is going to be important for a lot of different kinds of people, religious and not religious. There's a lot of reason why people hate religion because it sounds so illogical. Like it's like, and people hate religion partly because God seems to be so vindictive. Like he's so desperate to punish people. Why did God make a hell? Why did There's so many different versions of this that I hear all the time. Like, what if God made Satan, then how can he expect us to be good, for example? There's all these different versions of this question. This is Wahid's great question. And it's all based on I think, general misunderstanding of what good and evil is, and why God bothered with all this kind of stuff. Um, so, so why are God's so do good and you'll be rewarded more. So first of all is this idea or understanding of who God is. Like, a lot of atheists, and maybe rightly for some, because they quote certain parts of, let's say, the Bible, um, get the impression that God is really miserable and nasty. But if you look in the Quran, and by the way, the Quran is a Islam is a religion that teaches that all religions are true at their origins, right? And that God has always been guiding all people, and God is so the number one thing you have to know about God, because this is what the Quran repeats at the beginning of every one of the 114 or so chapters, is that God is so kind, number one, that he gives you loads of stuff for free whether you listen to God or not. So this is like telling you about, like, if you understand God, then you can understand like what's happening. And then the second thing is God wants you to develop. They don't want you to be static, and he really encourages you by giving you stuff. So why is that all kind of really important? It's like when you're going into school or wherever, and you have all these different rules by the teachers. The teachers don't make the rules for the sake of it. They make it so you develop, is kind of the basic idea. So um yeah, and also, I mean, so God, like, if you do anything good, you will be rewarded more than you deserve, because God, in the Quran at least, is the one who's so kind that it's like, you do one small thing, I'll give you 100 times more than that. And there's loads of different examples of that. Um, and doesn't matter, like, if you, and also it's a religion that says you don't have to be a Muslim to go to heaven, for example. Um, like, sorry, yeah, that's right. You don't. So, that's a short answer Like even if you're an atheist, you could go to heaven if you only thought, for example, and I'm a bit. Some people might contradict me with that, um, and I might be on sort of edge on that, but the idea is that you will be rewarded for whatever you know. So, for example, if you thought Islam means terrorism and all religions were terrible, and you just did the best thing you could, you will be rewarded for that based on what you know, right? Um, so those are some initial thoughts. Um, what else have I written over here? My notes. Uh, so God is kind. Everyone is given so, and also there's a second thing, which is you do know some things. Even if you don't know, if you don't know religion, you have a conscience. Everybody's been given a conscience, and if they listen to that, they will do really well. And by the way, the idea of a conscience is very well understood by psychologists, even though they don't. When I say very well understood, they accept that it's there, from Freud to Viktor Frankl. They talk about listening to it and it being this mystical thing that somehow it tells you off when you're doing some good things and rewards you when you're doing so wrong way around. It tells you off when you're doing something bad and rewards you when you're doing something good, and you can't escape it. You can't lie to it. I'm just going to quickly read some comments. So laws built for lying in UK. Law is built for lying in UK. Yeah, I can agree with that. The powerful create the laws nowadays, so help to protect them. Lie. Uh, Great to see you guys. Bismillah Rahman Rahim. That again, that's when I was explaining about who God is. But what's Mr. Universal Truth just said was the Arabic of the description of who God is, who is the most kind, and also encouraging us to do good. So he's not vindictive. He wants us to do well. And so sometimes we see suffering, but it's like there's a reason behind it. But that's a very long story by itself. It's just like the short version of why is there suffering, and is because it's like, imagine you're a little kid having lots of ice cream, and you know about ice cream, isn't it, Wahid, right? And he's having way too much ice cream. It's like, and if somebody takes away your ice cream, otherwise you're gonna get your, what did you get? Those stones in your kidney
Gall-
and all this
Gallstone.
gallstones, right? So if somebody takes it away, they're doing you a favor, but you might get really upset and start crying, like, "Hey, why did you take my ice cream? I love ice cream." But so something is good for you, but you
Two,
don't quite like it. But anyway, hi, Universal Truth. Saw your video. Yep. Chat between the viewers. Doing good should be rewarded in this life. Yes, it is reward in this life, and that's what psychologists tell us. If you listen to your conscience, again, Viktor Frankl, Man, Search for Meaning, do check it out. He's a very well respected psychologist, not too far after Freud and people like him. Um, he basically says that doing good, doing meaningful things, which is basically doing good, okay, according to your knowledge, that will make you happy. And actually, by the way, Islam teaches the same thing. It says if you live, so another version of listening to your conscience, it's a bit, and it's actually, I like to sometimes quote the Bible as well at the same time to demonstrate how I do believe in these different religions. But some of the Bible has been kind of corrupted with different ideas. That's why I don't always quote it. Is that if you fear God, now fear God sounds like a terrible thing, but like if you fear God, like you're very aware of God all the time, that's like listening to your conscience. You will have happiness in this life and the next, because when you don't follow you when you fear, like there's a God who's good and is watching over you, watching your thoughts, then you don't start doing planning evil things, because God is watching. Okay, and then you just do good things, and when you do good things are basically productive things. Like you can choose one. I want to sit at home, be selfish, and watch Netflix movies and forget the rest of the world. Or two, let's just say if we were making it really simple, or two, I'm going to go out and try to be friendly with my neighbor. If those were the only two options, right? If you knew God is watching your thoughts, You would go for option two, talk to your neighbor. And what would happen is you'll become happier. So good things are basically things that will make society and yourself happier. Okay, doing good in this life is punished with poverty and exploitation. So that's really interesting. People, it's really important that you're saying these things. And I would disagree. Okay, I would disagree. Um, but I understand where you're coming from because that's how it looks like on the surface. So I would say I know loads of rich people and they're so miserable, especially if I work with pretty rich people, right? Some of the richest people in the country at times, as a private tutor. And just having more stuff doesn't make you happy. And I've gone to some countries. In fact, I want to move back to some poorer countries because in poorer countries, people just have each other. And by default, they're going to be happier. And when you say poorer countries, these countries, they have enough just to eat. And I remember when I was in the Gambia or when I was in Jordan, wherever, right? I was much skinnier first of all when I was in Jordan. I came back really skinny because we didn't eat much. Um, and but we were a lot more connected. Like you go to a shop, you just have a conversation, and they'll give you a free sweet to the kids because it'll be a whole conversation. And the person who's at the shop, he sees himself as an uncle. Yeah. Um, but so let me talk about, so all here disagrees, okay, and let me kind of go. So first of all, we know, psychologists know, just being rich doesn't make you happy, right? Okay, and being giving makes you happy. Like again, psychologists know that. So I think, as I say, like this is one of the problems about unity. Like how do we overcome disunity is learning the truth, the reality of what actually makes us happy. So I don't feel jealous of richer people because I'm like, oh, poor things most of the time. From I've so in fact I've Yeah, okay. So some interesting comments like no, wealth is not owning. So please explain that. That's a really interesting comment. But also about exploitation. All here says I'm going to quickly say something because I want to give a chance to um, he to say something about exploitation. There's all this idea about us being, again, what's the word? We are we are weak and powerless, and yeah, there's a word for all of that, right? Like we're victims. That's the word, right? But as soon as you start doing things for other people, you realize that you have the power to change things. And actually, the one thing I like to say, real happiness is not in things. So you cannot have happiness robbed from you. And so Viktor Frankl, just to give you a bit of background, he was in a Nazi concentration camps. He didn't have anything, and he still found meaning and peace while he was there. And I mean, there's a very extreme situation. People who didn't find meaning died really quickly. We so everybody had, so there's an example in the book. It says about how everybody seemed to have this thing. I think it was typhoid or something. But if you had meaning, somehow your brain overcame your sickness. But as soon as you gave up mentally, people would die really quickly. Like one person thought, he had a weird dream, and he had a dream that the war would end on a certain day, and he literally died on the next day when his dream wasn't fulfilled or something. He just had some weird dream, right? So we're really affected by our thoughts. So I think we should start really realizing how powerful we can be, how much effect we can have. And I don't feel a victim despite not having much money, and I feel like I'm making a difference in small ways. And I think this is the only way forward. Like, as soon as we say we are victims and we're just exploited, then that doesn't help. Like, I want to hear what can we do. That's it, really. But anyway, doing a lot of talking, and I only gave you a minute left. Wahid, sorry. Any thoughts?
Yeah, we can. There's a lot we can do to like getting ourselves, as you were saying, getting ourselves in order. As you were saying. Um,
Yes. Sure. Yeah, yeah, that's brilliant. Get your house in order, and then
yeah,
suddenly, at least you, rather than waiting for some, night on whatever the phrase is, right? Nice shining night on horse, whatever the phrase is. I'm rubbish
yeah,
with phrases, but you know what I'm saying. Like somebody to save you,
yeah,
like save
yeah.
yourself right now. Start feeling good about right now. I want people to be happy at least. But okay, say we are victims, and we are victims of society. We're victims of our own doing as well.
Mm.
Like save yourself right now by feeling good, by doing something good.
Absolutely.
Um,
Try.
yeah,
Don't take it for granted. Be kind to, as you said, be kind to your neighbor and the people around you, because eventually these things are gonna, a day will come along when these things are not going to exist, and things are likely to get worse. We don't know.
yeah, that's
Uh,
really true. The way the world is going,
the way the world
I
is going,
really
soon,
things.
now people, it's the money which is ripping people apart, even for small things.
Yeah,
People want to. I mean, there's another thing when people go on holiday,
mm,
people want to rip each other off and compensate one another. Money talking.
interesting. But I
What
do get what you're saying. Like within families, people chasing money, and I want this, and I want
I
this
want.
inheritance, and whatever.
People are not,
So.
and this is what's breaking families.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely money is just not the problem by itself because money can be really divisive. But money is not really the problem by itself either. It's not you blame the money either because money is just paper. It's just values for us. It's
Yeah,
what we do with it. It can be really powerful for good and bad.
exactly.
But,
Yeah, but
but it's us that has to get, like you said, get your own house in order before we can start fixing the world. Anyway, let's just jump into the next thing, and they're all related in different ways. So next question: how do you avoid bad things when doing them is so tempting? This is again another question
very,
from Wahid, and really important question, even though it might sound really simple. This is really important, something that we all suffer from, because what is good and bad even, right? um so because that's really, now that we've kind of given up on religion largely, especially in London, um, we're really unclear about what that is. So let's just jump. So my brief answer before reading any comments is learn about the effects of bad things. So you're tempted by, let's say, something that looks really good, like, I don't know, I'm gonna look at porn or something, so what's the harm in it? But then when you Google or try to find out the effects of watching porn, how it has on you is really bad for you. Like it destroys your creativity, it makes you really aggressive to other people. It has so many bad things about it, right? And like you probably even feel it. Like if you just spend time watching porn, then you finish with it and you look around, it's like, what a waste of my time. Like it just feels so dumb. Yeah. So
but
you feel it after you wasted the time doing it. But go on, what were we going to say?
can have an opposite effect. Sometimes you want to watch something even worse than that, and then you want to watch worse porn, and even worse than that, and
100%,
then you
because
get
that is one of the documented findings of going to porn, that you watch porn and then it's like, oh, it's not good enough. It's not getting me excited enough. I'm going to go to something more extreme until you go to like pedophile stuff and really nasty stuff.
and
And,
it.
people doing bad things to each other. It's obviously the real people doing it. So they're harming, getting harmed and whatever. Yeah.
Is
So
there people like that? What hope is? Can they be reversed? Can people like that? Can people like these? How do we save people like that? The solution is to take it down. But why is social
yeah.
media like YouTube and Facebook and
Take
other?
what down? Porn, for example.
Yes, why are
Sure.
they available? Why is social media also destroying society and making these kind of people more and more vulnerable to these kind of acts and more
Okay.
danger
Yeah.
to society, you know?
So I'll tell you the harsh answer because we want it. We want porn. Porn is popular.
I just,
Porn is popular until it becomes really unpopular, so unpopular that most of society said no, no, no. Then it'll be, laws will be made and it'll be stopped, and it can be stopped by, it can be blocked. Certain websites you can get the technology to block these things, and people need to take responsibility as well. It's like, yes, you know for a better world we try to safeguard ourselves from bad things. So like we try to ban drugs being taken openly, for example, although that's not the solution to solving the drug problem either, but that's another, it's a bit of a complicated one. But you do try to avoid putting bad things right in front of you. So like, say you want to stop eating chocolate, then you don't keep chocolate in your house. This is a well-known way of avoiding it. You make it harder for yourself to fall into your own traps. Okay,
mm,
so same with porn. If you're living by yourself, that's hard to avoid. But if you have TVs, or sorry, like computers or something in a public space, you make it hard for you to watch porn because everybody's too embarrassed to watch porn in front of other people, for example. So
yeah,
there's different ways of doing that, but that's not the only way, right? The key way is to like understand the danger of these bad things, because they look, see, the bad things really are tempting because you don't know how bad they are for you. They look just too good, right? All these different bad things, forget porn, it could be anything. Being selfish, they look good, but when you study, you go, "Ooh, there's something really bad about it." I'm going to jump in with a couple of the comments. um, and I'll try to weave it into the discussion. So there's something about, can human beings live without money? And then all here, so universal truth said that, and then all here says, oh yeah, we should end money, and the only reason why money exists is to make sure that the wealthy can hide their political effect over us. And porn, another comment is, porn is a multi-billion-pound industry, owned by globalists. And then last comment by O'Hare is, capitalism owns all aspects of the sex industry. Interesting, a whole bunch of interesting ideas. But my problem with that is, okay, let's go to one after the other, and I'm going to try to tie it into this because I do want to answer this idea about doing bad things. Okay, um, so one okay, so one thing that the comments are basically saying is that doing bad things, where we are victims, so bad things are happening, we are made to do bad things. We're in an environment where we're made to do bad things. Okay, and we're and one of the methods of that is money, and I disagree with that. Money is just value, and if we didn't have money, we'd have huge problems, because then we'd have to barter instead. Okay, so money is a really easy way for me to buy stuff. For example, if I want to buy carrots, um I can just give this token called money. Now, if I don't have money, what I need to do is I need to go to the shop, and go to a shop with something. I'll say, you know what? Obviously, there's no money anymore because we, for some reason, banned money. You can have my keyboard for 20 carrots. And then they go, I don't really like your keyboard. It doesn't look as stylish as, it's not the style that I want. So you really suffer. There's a really short answer. You really suffer if you didn't have money. So money is a modern invention that's really helpful. We should stop blaming money. We should blame ourselves, because money is really helpful. I think that's logical. Money is just a thing. Now, what you do with it is up to you. Now, I mean, there's a bit of an argument that money is fake money nowadays. You print as much as you want, and people manipulate it in the stock exchanges and stuff like that, and the powerful manipulate it more. Um, so, but that's about morality. Like, the thing, money itself is not a problem. It's like how it's used. If we don't have money, society will collapse. And I think that's logical. Like, okay, how are you going to go and get your carrots, Wahid? I know you probably don't like carrots. Do you like carrots?
It varies. I would say mostly yes.
You do? All right. I thought you were just out of control with your KFC. That's what I was thinking. That.
I had
Okay,
today, by the way.
that is true. Do you say? Yeah.
I had KFC today, by the way. But yeah,
Oh no, no! Don't admit to it, man. Don't admit, because then you're gonna have to admit that you had it yesterday as well. Or maybe no.
no, no,
No.
no,
Okay.
because there wasn't enough. There wasn't enough food in the fridge. That's why.
All right. Sure. All
But
right. Okay, but let's say you want your carrots. Yeah.
yeah.
Um. How are you gonna buy carrots without money?
Well, obviously, you can't. You obviously you have two options.
Hmm.
The first option is either you don't have it or you go hungry, or the bad option is steal it.
Okay. So both pretty terrible options, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess
So
money is probably the lesser of the two evils or the three evils.
yeah. So I'm not a fan of blaming things for our unhappiness. Happiness is in our minds largely, because we can have lots of things and still be really unhappy. So there's two people with the same amount of things. One is really happy, one is not happy. Obviously, I think logically, that means happiness is about how you see the world. It's up here. It's not here. It's
Well,
there. Because if two people, in fact, the person with more stuff is often more less happy, because believe more that the things are making them happy, and the people with less stuff often have more people. But anyway, that's another kind of direction. um this is a very interesting discussion anyway. So let me just say, what can we do? One is understanding the nature of these bad things. This is my key point. Like, if you know how bad those things that you are being tempted with are in fact, then you won't be tempted by them. Does that make sense, Wahid? What do you think?
yeah. I mean, if these things weren't there, obviously, yeah,
No, it's not about not there. I'm not
yeah,
saying it's not there. It's like, if you knew, okay, look, say there's a deadly snake that goes into a hole, would you put your hand in that hole?
you probably wouldn't know
No. But a baby might. Do you know why?
because he doesn't know.
He doesn't know that how dangerous it is, right? So you are more smarter. So as you become smarter, then the bad thing, or the things that are bad, they look tempting for the people who don't understand. They're intelligent, they haven't studied enough. You
Oh,
study more, then you see how bad those things that you are being tempted with are. It's not whether they're there or not. It's like, you don't want them anymore when you realize how bad they are for you.
yeah. But
Yeah,
all kid is just going to he's going to be tempted to go towards it, and whereas
yeah, I know. So we have to be
you know,
smarter than the poor kid, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's why I say, for example, so in our metaphor, the porn, for example, we keep talking about porn because it's keeping it really simple, right? Porn is like the snake.
yeah,
Don't go near the porn. It's like the snake. You'll bite you. It's poisonous, and it is poisonous for your mind.
yeah.
But you
Absolutely.
have to know that. You have to really know that. And then you have to kind of live that as well. You have to really feel it, not just have a theoretical, oh yeah, it's really bad. Like, but it does start with understanding the damage of it. And that is very effective for people. For example, there's this program for quitting smoking. Smoking is bad for you. Everybody knows, right? And there's this program where it says, like, you can smoke, feel free, but every time you smoke, think of the bad qualities of it and how it tastes, because it tastes like ash. I've never smoked, but it must pretty taste like ash, right? So when people think about it, the damage and whatever, they end up stop smoking. Apparently, this is one program that I've heard of. So being aware of the harm is really important. Let me quickly see, what else did I say? Yeah. So I would say, how do you become aware of the harm of things? There's So in religion is really powerful in that it tells you a whole list of things that are really good for you and what is bad for you. And it's kind of really important to have those three things, because um say, so why do we go towards porn? It's not just that we're evil and we're just stupid. It's just that we're having something missing in our lives,
Exactly, exactly.
right? So
People want,
that's why it's valuable to know what's good for you
and
first.
it's not just, people that live on their own. It's people that are even married people as well.
Yes.
Why?
Right, and because they don't, I mean, I'm gonna talk about that in the next show. I'm talking about sex in the next show, right? And I'm gonna talk about how married people are having bad sex, for example, because of something they haven't thought about correctly in their minds. But that's a whole different, topic there. But yeah, um, what else? Psychologists keep telling us that keep doing yeah, we keep doing the opposite of what makes us happy. I want to summarize with that. We in society are struggling with happiness because we literally do the opposite and because we've been sold by advertising about what makes us happy. And we've been told things make us happy and it's not things. And
Mm,
that's why we find happiness so difficult, and so we're so depression, just so you know, is going through the roof. People think people are happy, people are not happy. Wow, there's so much said, there's so much to be said.
mm,
I'm just gonna what is and I'm going to keep a note. I'm gonna try to answer in the comments, in the non-live comments, some of the great comments that were made in the live chat that we didn't quite respond to. I just want to say thank you first of all, Wahid. I
yeah.
really, really appreciate it.
And
There's so much.
don't forget, guys, to smash the like button.
Thank you so much. I really, please do support the show. Um, and thank you so much, all here and Universal Truth. Fantastic conversations, really good points. We don't have to agree. I think it's really important to have these opposite opinions and still be friendly and understanding and realizing we're really on the same team. So many fantastic comments that I didn't respond to, and I'm going to respond to in the non live chat below. Do check out the description, where you can see more information. You can see previous shows, you can see written answers, summaries of so many things that I didn't talk about. Cool. All right, thank you very much. Peace be
Oh,
upon you. Wahid, as usual, just stick around. I'm going to press the end stream thing and we'll just talk about how it went and stuff
yeah,
like that.
sure.
And peace be upon you. Thank you very